Good afternoon, Howard. Give us your name and tell us what kind of career you have chosen to pursue.
Wow. Well, my name is Howard Lobb, and I've had a couple careers. Um, I started off as a mechanical engineer. That's what I studied at Valparaiso University, and I worked in industry for 8 years. I worked in quality systems, manufacturing engineering, for three different corporations. And then along the way, I started thinking, there should be, there might be something else I should pursue and try in this lifetime before I just get settled into one company, one job for a long time. And I started pursuing and decided to do a volunteership in Guatemala for a year. Did some things related to that along the way, such as construction work, which were skills that I needed for a couple of the different volunteer positions I was looking at. So kind of tried different stuff. Left the States, not for the first time, but went to a developing country for a first time, started learning a language. Um,
So wait,
and
at this point you had decided that you were going to go completely in a different direction?
Well, so I'm still kind of in the test mode here in my
Okay.
story, where I go to Guatemala for a year to volunteer and live in a rural village and try that out. And I go back to the States, work in industry for another year and a half, 2 years, and then eventually come back to Guatemala to work with what you guys now know of as Cooperative for Education. I had previously met Joe Berninger, one of our club members, and his brother, and I helped them start our technology learning center program. So, and that was just for 3 months too. So still just testing the waters, using my tech skills, although I wasn't an IT guy per se, usually in my general tech skills and project skills to launch this project. And then that 3 months turned into 2 years, and now it's turned into 20 plus years.
So where are you standing right now?
So right now I'm in Guatemala City. This background you see is a building of one of our students who lives out in the rural area. So
I
that's
see.
that's what that is. And yeah, so I've been working for this nonprofit organization since 2001. So for 11, 12 years, I did program development and program management. And then I started seeing new needs within the organization, like um, donor relations, communications, marketing, things like that. So I kind of morphed what I did and turned over the technology program to somebody else, and then started getting into this line of work. So right now, I guess you could say I'm a fundraiser and a partner development professional. So
Very different from mechanical engineering.
that's right. That's
Just
right.
two completely different paths.
That's
So you mentioned in the beginning when you first went over for your, I don't know, kind of exploratory
right.
stint, you
Right.
kind of implemented some of your skills from the engineering world that you had been in. But do you still use that at all?
I can't say I use engineering skills, but certainly all of my work in the corporate world and engineering world has formed how I think about things in terms of being orderly and, documentation and presenting ideas clearly and, all of those kind of things. So it's always there. It's always part of your formation, right? So,
So you've left a lot behind if you moved to Guatemala.
right.
Uh, what kind of education really did you have to do the job you're doing now? Most of your education was for your previous path, right?
Right.
So
Right.
how did you become able to do the job you're doing now?
I had very little. And back in the day, so we're talking, I mean, co-ed started in 97. I first came down in 96. Then I first formally started working with co-ed in 2001. So back in the day, um, probably, well, certainly we as an organization were less sophisticated and we needed kind of any able body that we could. I had Spanish experience at that point. I had experience with Guatemalan culture at that point. But no formal studies in terms of program development or anything like that. I was a smart enough guy. I knew enough about how to structure a project and did a lot of benchmarking with teachers back in the US about how to teach technology and then how to set up IT centers and things like that. But yeah, those skills I didn't have formally. Um, and yeah, a lot of what we've done in co-ed is grow and grow and then hire people who are better than we are at what we're doing. And so same in my current role in fundraising and sales, marketing. I'm not I don't have formal training per se other than courses and things like that and on the job learning and so yeah, that's I think especially maybe a function as a person on the founding in the founding circle of an organization. You're growing so fast, you're just constantly seeing needs and trying to fulfill those needs and then hire for those needs and stuff. So
I think it takes a very special person to be able to do what you've done. So I think you're very accomplished in communication and working with different people and recognizing the local needs and seeing solutions. And I don't know, how do you prepare for the kind of job you are doing other than to be just spectacular at all kinds of things? I'm not sure. I
yeah.
think we should title this I Can Do Everything kind of thing.
Well, yeah. So to answer your question, I mean, like in program development, a lot of it was working with communities, and I think I'm pretty good at connecting with people, being empathetic to people. So, going into rural communities, understanding their needs, hearing them, any of the concerns that they might have, even though you'd think it would be easy because we're trying to give them things and help them with things, but people are doubtful, they question, they wonder, So I think all of those people skills that a lot of us have, but I think I have a lot of those skills was valuable. Um, yeah, and just you know, doing good work, being clear, clear in your communication. All those things helped me along the way. Um, but if you're asking the question about if somebody wants to get into nonprofit work, should you do? I mean, there's lots of courses of studies, nonprofit management or fundraising, or whether it be from small courses to certifications to, I really don't know if there's any university programs on fundraising. Well, maybe, I mean, certainly marketing communications, and that certainly is part of that role. So certainly things you could do, things I would do if I, were to do it again. So
And of course, you can do nonprofit work in the US that benefits international communities, but just picking up and moving abroad, especially to a less developed country, there are a lot of challenges for Americans. How would you recommend? There might be someone watching this video who really wants to move to a place just like where you are in Guatemala. And what would be some advice you could give them before they sell everything and buy
that's
a
right.
one-way ticket?
Sure, right. Well, I followed people, actually coworkers of mine. I was working at Lexmark International in Lexington, Kentucky, not too far from Ohio. And a couple of my coworkers had done things like Peace Corps or had done a shorter stint of volunteering and planted that bug in me. And so that's certainly a good way to go, find some volunteer opportunity, whether it be for a week or a month or 6 months or whatever. I happen to find, what worked out to be very good. It wasn't a 2.5 year Peace Corps stint, which was one of my options. It turned out to be a 1 year stint with a Catholic mission in Guatemala, and that's a good way. The other thing that made the transition much more feasible was I was able to get a leave of absence from my company, keep health insurance with them, do the year, then come back. I had the option to come back with them if I wanted to. So all those things, make it much more palatable and give you a little bit of a safety net in case you don't
Right.
like the stuff.
Yeah,
So yeah,
much less risky than just going.
that's right. Yeah. No, and a lot of people thought I was crazy. Half the people when I turned in my quote unquote resignation at work, half the people said, "You're crazy. What are you doing? Why are you giving up this good job?" And the other half of the people said, "Oh, I wish I would have done something like that at your age." So,
Interesting.
yeah.
So, I already forgotten, but had you established some understanding of Spanish before you went, or did that catch on fire after you got there?
I knew French fairly well, so I thought, okay, I've got some knack for languages, it shouldn't be too hard. But it was hard. I was, 30 at that time, roughly 29 or so when I first came to Guatemala for that first year. Lived with a family to do an immersion language study program, lived with the family for a month, then went to this village where I was working for a month or so, then went back to the school for 2 weeks. I mean, it's hard. It took me 6 months for my, at 30, I was pretty old to, get the ear for it and things
Yeah,
like that. So it was hard. And then when I came back full time with co-ed in 2001, I remember the first 3 months, 6 months was, constant headaches at the end of the day because of the mental strain of learning a new language and all of that. But it's good, it's exciting and it's your brain is working every day. So
that is true. Now you are disconnected from your family,
yeah.
or I think in today's world it's a little bit easier to deal with that. But can you tell us a little bit about that? Have you just left America behind?
No, no, no. That's been hard. In the early years, it was like you're probably alluding to. Communication wasn't as easy. It was more expensive. My calls to the States were, what were they, 20 cents a minute or something, which wasn't a lot, but people from the States calling down, it was much more expensive. They just didn't know how to do it. So people didn't call you, and that was hard. They didn't mean you realize they just didn't know how to do it, So there was that little bit of separation, and you had to be the one to make the initiative to call people. Now it's easier with all of our internet
Gadgets.
possibilities. But yeah, no, it's hard. I mean, certainly someone who's thinking about working overseas, you have to contemplate that. So I am definitely not as close to my college and high school friends as I would like to be. I mean, we chat, but it's not the same thing as, oh, I think I'll fly over to Chicago for the weekend and see my buddies. And, so that's a challenge.
Is there
So,
something you miss that you can't get in Guatemala?
oh, I mean, tons of stuff.
What is it? Tell us what it is.
Well, I mean, there's so many things. Everything's cheaper in the US. The whole Amazon
Really?
economy. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
You want to buy a camera, clothes, you name it, TV, everything's cheaper in the US. So that's hard. And just the thing, just all the opportunities that we have, going to a public park that's safe, going to a Cincinnati Reds game, going to um, art museum. Not that some of that isn't here, but it's the U.S. is big. The U.S. has lots of opportunities. A country like Guatemala is beautiful and is a fantastic place, but with time,
Conversely, I was going to ask that. What is so fantastic about Guatemala? What is it that grabbed your heart?
certainly the people. People are very friendly, much more friendly, just out on the street than in the U.S. The hugs and the kisses. You don't leave a party or a dinner without going around and kissing or hugging or shaking the hands of everyone there. You don't just slip out the back door or anything like that. So the people, the culture, the history, 500 years of history, just a touch more kind of than the U.S. So some real rich Spanish history, of course, the Mayan history, the adventures in Guatemala. I mean, you go to these Mayan ruins and yeah, they're touristic, but it's still you're in another world still. It's very much exploring kind of everything at your own risk. So there's a real element of excitement there, and so yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
That is really neat. Um, one piece of advice for someone who, I know you've already given me good advice, but someone who really has no idea but wants to do world travel or an international location for their career, what's one nugget you would give them now while they're still in school?
For international work.
Yeah, I think so. Because
Yeah,
they can access the nonprofits in their area, but if they're
yeah.
thinking more internationally, what should they do?
I guess I think you should, like I said before, do some research, find a NGO or a nonprofit organization online or via friends or something and see if you can visit them. It's just being at a place in person is just so much different. And it might be 2 days, it might be a week, it's good if you could do it for a month or something. Just do something because everything is different and you get a feel on whether you like that vibe or not, or whether it's a little too risky for you, or that's the energy and excitement that you want, and the possibility of helping others solve some of the needs that they have. I think you can feel that pretty quickly. So try that. And then I was able to try it a couple times. I came down for a year, and then each summer after that, for the next 2 summers, I came down to keep volunteering with Joe Berninger and his brother for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks. And so I was able to keep getting that exposure and saying, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
liking this.
right.
This feels good. So yeah,
Very great. Thank you so much. You have such a neat career path. And if someone should watch this and think that they really would love to talk to you more or ask you a couple questions through our website, would you be willing to communicate with them?
certainly, for sure.
We appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time. I
You're
bet it's nice and warm right there. What
It
temperature
is.
is it right now?
It's probably 75 or 80 right now. So
How nice.
yeah.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Bye bye.
Bye.